Get started. Good afternoon. As most of you know, I'm Cletus Davis from Ultimate IT Guys, and welcome to our second Housing Authority webinar. I know most of you weren't able to attend the first one because of various reasons, but it looks like we've got a really good attendance today. We thought that doing these webinars would be a good, easy way for us to communicate with all of our customers at the same time without anyone having to travel. And the format allows us to get out good, timely information to you guys. We'll be recording the webinars and we'll have them available if you miss one. In today's webinar, we're going to discuss some security terminology, and then we're going to apply that terminology to a recent vulnerability that's been in the news. And then we will discuss some current security issues and a new way that we have of helping protect you from these problems. So why are we here today? Well, our agenda for today is we're going to have a recap of last month. We're going to talk about vulnerabilities versus exploits. We're going to talk about the Spectre and Meltdown vulnerabilities that have been in the news for the last month or so. We're going to talk about some of the big threats that are out there. And then we're going to talk about everywhere protection, which is kind of what we're terming one of the new things we have to offer you guys. And then we're going to take some questions. Now, as I just kind of go back to that recap of last month, part of what we're really wanting to do with all of this is that we want to be able to serve you better. We want to do a better job of taking care of you and your housing authority. We want to serve you better through better communication and better service. And we'll also be discussing a little about who we are and setting the stage for future discussions. Those are some of the things that we did last month in that webinar. Talking about serving you better, we talked about the better communication, better service. I'm not going to go into great detail in these things at the moment, but the main thing is we're just wanting to improve and help you guys better. And this monthly webinar is one of those things. The plan is for it to last about 30 to 60 minutes. It's going to be some quick, helpful tips to be more productive and safe. We're going to talk about some of the standards for technology and computing. Going to have some security updates, timely topics, new services that we might be looking into, and then just training on various things. Those are some of the things that we'll be doing with the webinars over the next few months. One of the things that I wanted to start off with, some of you have already been taking advantage of this. We've sent out a couple of emails about it, and we talked about it last time on the webinar in January, is one of the ways we have to help you now is just another way for you to be able to request help from us. I know that some of you that have been with us from the very beginning or for a very long time, you're used to just trying to call me or text me. And well, sometimes I'm traveling and I'm hard to get a hold of. So it's a little quicker if you just send an email to this help@ultimateitguys.com. And if you do that, that email will automatically open a ticket in our ticketing system. And that way, if I'm not where I can see things right then or whatever, well, one of the other guys, Stephen or Marcus or Patricia, somebody will see that ticket come through and can go ahead and start working on it. So it's just a way to help you get a little bit faster service and to make sure that nothing gets missed. January recap. This is talking about some of the security things we covered last time, and we'll go into a little more about these toward the end of the webinar today. What we've always done doesn't work anymore. Data breaches are common, and chances are you've been exposed. Our work and our personal lives are interconnected. The things we do away from the office affect the office and vice versa. You can't fight today's threats using 1990s technology, and traditional antivirus is not going to stop the threats we have today. Now, as we move into kind of our first phase here today, we're going to talk about vulnerabilities versus exploit. So it's a little bit of just some terminology stuff. I know these security terms can get very confusing, and to make it worse, they're often used incorrectly in news and articles. So I thought it would be helpful to explain the differences between these three basic terms, and then understanding some of this basic security terminology will kind of help you as you try to make sense of the information that you see on the TV or in the newspaper about security issues. A vulnerability is a flaw in a piece of hardware or software. An exploit is a way to take advantage of a vulnerability. An attack is when someone uses an exploit to gain access to a system or information. Okay, well that still is pretty vague and kind of techy and probably still doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you. So I'm going to use an analogy of a house to help us explain these terms, or a home. So we all understand that at our home, we want to keep bad guys out of our home. We don't want somebody breaking in and stealing our new flat screen TV or some of the other, jewelry or things like that in your home. Well, one of your first lines of defense in a home is your door, right? And you usually have a lock on the door. Well, a vulnerability is like not having a lock on your back door. Or maybe you have a lock, but it's a really crappy one that anybody can get through. And obviously, if your back door is unlocked, you're at risk for something bad to happen. It's much easier for somebody to gain uninvited access to your home if your door's not locked. You are vulnerable. So hence why the term vulnerability comes in. Now, however, if nobody ever tries to come in your back door, then nothing bad has really happened yet. If we break it down to just a one simple word thing, the vulnerability is kind of the what. It's the what is wrong, it's the theory around it. If we take our next step now and go talk about an exploit's more of the how things happen. So an exploit is like somebody going down the street checking to see if somebody's back door is unlocked. Often exploits can have multiple variations. So maybe I check to see if your back door is unlocked. But also might check to see, well, if you have a certain type of lock, well, maybe it's real easy to pick. Or another exploit might be if your door has glass in it, well, maybe I can just break the glass and reach in and unlock the door. Or if I'm really bold, well, maybe I can just kick the door in. Those would all be some examples of different types of exploits against that door that's there to keep out the bad guys. So anyway, now they know that the door is open and they have a way in. Maybe they just take note of it and come back another day, or they could open the door and go inside. That's where it switches from a theory into action. An attack is like someone actually opening the door and going in. So now they're inside and they're looking around. It doesn't always mean that they're going to steal something or break something. Often the initial attack is just about gathering information or leaving behind a way to spy on you. Many studies show that often attackers are in your network for 3 to 6 months before any noticeable activity occurs. So if we kind of recap that, the vulnerability is the what. It's the what's wrong. The exploit is the how they're going to take advantage of the vulnerability. The attack is what changes it to a verb. That's the action. That's the actually doing something. Now, sometimes we might use other measures to reduce our risk of having an unlocked back door. You might have a tall fence with a locked gate. Maybe you have a pit bull in your backyard that makes uninvited guests less likely to step foot in your backyard. Or you could have an alarm system to notify you and call the police if someone enters your home. You could have a camera system to help identify the person and see how they gained access to your home. And these are all things we'll talk about another day, about just other layers you could maybe put in place to help protect your network, just like those things I mentioned there would protect your home. But the main thing I wanted to take away today is just understanding the subtle differences between these terms and how it helps when you're reading articles or seeing the news, just helping you understand a little better. A vulnerability without an exploit is not as dangerous as a vulnerability that's being actively exploited and being used to attack people. And the main reason I wanted to really talk about these is kind of as we shift gears now into trying to use this, to put it to use. We're going to talk about the Spectre and the Meltdown vulnerabilities that were announced at the very beginning of January. When those were announced on January the 4th, there were no known exploits available. No attacks had been carried out. Yet everyone kind of got up in the air and very excited and charged off trying to fix a bunch of stuff. And while that's been good, at the same time, it wasn't like there was someone actively breaking down the door and coming in your home. It was just more of a theory. And really, it's still, that's kind of where it's at today, even, as we talk about it. Like I said, in January, there were no known exploits or attacks on those vulnerabilities. However, today, according to AV tests, they found over 150 code samples that they've collected that appear to be able to exploit these vulnerabilities with the Spectre and the Meltdown, which, if I back up and talk about that for just a second without getting overly techy, basically this vulnerability is at a very, very low level in the processor of pretty much every computer on the planet. And it has to do with the way it exchanges information and tries to multitask. And it's a very theoretical problem and a very difficult one for the bad guys to exploit at the moment. But pretty much everything out there is susceptible to it at the moment. What they're seeing right now is that the bad guys are kind of in the same place as the good guys. The good guys are rushing to create patches and try to fix the systems to reduce or remove the vulnerability. At the same time, the bad guys are trying to figure out, well, how can I take advantage of this vulnerability? Basically, what they're saying here is that there aren't any current exploits, there aren't any current attacks happening, but they are quickly developing those capabilities, and it will be happening soon. Again, still known or reported attacks have happened, again, with this Spectre or Meltdown vulnerability. There's no immediate danger, but the exploits and the attacks are coming. 3 things to avoid issues from Spectre and Meltdown: keeping your Windows updates up to date. There's BIOS updates for it. There's antivirus updates for it. And as you guys know, those are things we're already taking care of. You've probably seen the emails we'd sent out where we've been working on that. So we're taking care of you. That's the big thing to take away at the moment. As we go back and kind of recap all of that, there aren't any current exploits. There's no current attacks, but those things are coming. We've patched everything that we can and are continuing to watch for more patches because the hardware companies and Microsoft are both coming out with patches pretty much almost daily for new pieces of this. That's been one of the problems with this. It's been a big technical challenge because the fixes have to happen at such a very, very low level in the computer operating system that it's a technical challenge. And some of the patches have had to have additional patches put on top of them because the first patch created problems. So you probably have noticed there's been a lot more updates happening recently, and probably your computer wanting to reboot more recently. And that's just part of all this, and that it's a necessary thing. Now, a few more of the facts just in general is that pretty much everything with a processor is vulnerable. All computers, both Apple and Windows, even Linux and Unix computers, all are vulnerable to this issue. Many of the older computers will never have a BIOS update to fix this. Most of the manufacturers are very focused on their current computer lines and on the newer stuff for going forward. So basically, if you've got something that's over 3 years old, definitely if you have one that's over 5 years old, there's probably not ever going to be a fix for it. That's just the reality. Now, the other side of that coin is that just rushing out and buying a new computer doesn't necessarily fix the problem, because that new computer out of the box is still going to have the issue until those BIOS updates and stuff are applied to it. That doesn't necessarily mean if you're needing to buy a new computer that you should put it off, because if it is a newer one, those updates will happen. They will come out with the BIOS fixes and stuff for those. The longer term solution is when the companies like Intel and AMD that make the processors come out with their next series of processors, which I think will be happening fairly soon. Then this flaw will be less of an issue because they're going to deal with it right from the beginning. So the main thing to take away, it's not a serious, oh my gosh thing, I'm getting attacked today, but it's something we need to be mindful of and pay attention to over the coming weeks and months. And if you do have an older computer, it's probably never going to have a fix for it. That's the big takeaways. I guess one more thing I should mention is it does affect other devices besides just computers. This also can affect things like any of these kind of what they would call Internet of Things devices, like your security camera systems, internet connected phone systems, maybe access control systems for like your doors and stuff. Could even affect tablets and phones in some cases, according to what brand of processor it has. But anyway, those are just some general things. It affects a lot of devices. Now, as we move on, just wanted to kind of switch gears from that now and move back forward. Reminder of what our basic services are. That's preventative maintenance, which is doing those updates and patches and stuff, getting those in, cleaning up the junk, which helps keep you secure and helps take care of the problems like this. And I think pretty much everybody that's on the phone today, you already have our service. We're doing that for you. It's also having proper antivirus. It's having backup. It's having remote support, proper email service, remote access. Those are kind of the basic things that we offer and do. But we also have some more enhanced or higher level services that we also offer. And two of those that we're going to be talking about today are going to be kind of in that enhanced networking and enhanced security piece of those offerings. Now, I'm kind of switching back to that recap we had at the very beginning. What we've always done doesn't work anymore. Today's threats are very different, and they've moved along. The bad guys have gained a lot of understanding and stay kind of out on the cutting edge. And some of the things we used to do last week or last month or last decade, well, they don't really do that much to protect us anymore. one of the big reasons is that because our work and our personal lives now are so interconnected, that is a really big part of why these things are so easy to take advantage of now. The things we do away from the office affect the office and vice versa. So basically what that means is our work and our personal lives are very connected, and the things I do personally affects my work. The things I do at work may affect my personal life. And that's just something we need to be mindful of. Another thing is that we can't fight today's threats using 1990s technology. Many of the devices and security programs that are out there are using old, outdated methods of protecting you. The newer threats can get around most of those older technologies. Traditional antivirus is not going to stop the threats we have today. Now, granted, you guys have, I think most everybody on the phone here uses our antivirus products, and they are, very good top-line products that do those extra things that you need to help keep you safe. But we are going to talk about some additional security things that go kind of above and beyond what antivirus will do. Now, some of our big threat areas that we have today has to do with mobile devices, working at home, public Wi-Fi, free email, DNS directory hijacking, data breaches, identity theft, ransomware, and, well, I probably should have phishing on there as well. But, these are all things I think for the most part you can kind of understand. I'm going to back up and talk about this DNS directory hijacking for a moment, because that's something you probably don't understand necessarily. Basically, DNS is like your phone book for the internet. It's how computers find other computers. And just like you could go to the old phone book, I guess for those of us that are over 20 years old will understand that you can pick up the phone book, and I look up Ultimate IT Guys, and it says it gives my address and my phone number there. It tells where I'm located and gives my phone number, 580-782-2266, and that's how you get a hold of me. Well, the computer directory hijacking, the bad guys have figured out that, well, they can kind of slip bad information in there. So when your computer looks up, let's say, Home Depot's website, and you've clicked on Home Depot's website, well, instead of it going to the actual Home Depot website, behind the scenes, it can redirect you to a different website because it's using this directory hijacking. So it's sending you to a bad address. And so basically what that means is a bad guy could set up a website that looks just like Home Depot's website, and they can have this thing sitting here running that redirects people to their copy of Home Depot's website, and now they're stealing your credit card and your email address and your passwords and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a scary thing, and it's becoming very prevalent in some of the newer attacks that are coming out. But we have a way to deal with it. So what are we going to do about these issues? Well, we have some solutions. We've got some things already in place to help deal with ransomware. Our Bitdefender product has a module in it that helps to stop some types of ransomware. Some of the outbreaks that we've seen last year that were really bad, they had updates for that very quickly pushed out. Also, our main backup software that we're using now also has a component in it that looks to see if things are trying to change lots of files very quickly or other suspicious types of behavior, and helps to stop ransomware from executing. And we also have another product that we're going to be talking about probably next month that has the ability even to roll back damage from ransomware. If it does get on a machine and starts to encrypt files, it actually can turn that back, which is really cool. Data breaches, both direct and indirect. Okay, what does that really mean? Well, direct would be like if your office is breached. Someone gets information from your housing authority. But the scary one is the indirect stuff. We all have accounts with lots of different places. You know, it could be HUD, it could be your bank, it could be your insurance company, your email company provider, lots of other places. And if they get breached and lose your information, which could be your email address, it could be your password, your date of birth, it could be any number of things. It could be even like your security questions and answers for resetting your password. I mean, those are all things, good examples of indirect type of things that could happen. And this is something that's kind of out of your control. That's the scary part. These are the places like the Equifax getting breached, or Yahoo being breached, or many of the other ones that we've heard about over the last year. Because of all of those, you're at a much higher risk for identity theft, which kind of brings in down below here the identity management and protection piece that we're trying to work on and solve. Most of you, if you've heard me speak over the last year, have probably heard me harp on email, especially the free email accounts, especially the one from Yahoo. That is one of the most dangerous things we can do today is use Yahoo email. They have been breached so many times over. They have all the ads on their web pages, and they are known to have bad, malicious ads that spread viruses on their web pages. And that's something we're going to continue to talk a lot about this year, is getting people off the Yahoo email and the other free email services and over to a proper business email account. One of the studies I was reading this week said that probably 80 to 90% of the attacks today either begin with an email or they have an email component in their attack. 80 to 90%. So if you can filter out a lot of that junk and not ever have it come to your email inbox, you're a whole lot safer than you were. So email is going to be a very big topic this year for us. We've already kind of talked about DNS security, enhanced security, password management. This is one that's been a topic a lot of us have talked about over the last couple of years. Just there's so many passwords to keep track of. We need to have better passwords and stronger passwords, but they're hard to remember. So we're working with some tools, and we'll have something out for you to start using. We've begun testing and think we're just about there with having some offerings for that to make that easier and simpler. Another thing is being able to protect you when you're on public Wi-Fi. Again, most of you probably heard me gripe about that and told you don't use public Wi-Fi when you're traveling. Well, one of these new protections that we're talking about will actually keep you safe when you're using public Wi-Fi. So, because I know that's one of the big pushbacks I've had from a lot of people is that, well, you know, I do travel sometimes and I don't have a hotspot I can take with me, but I need to get on to check email or check on something back at the office. Well, we've got ways to help you now with that. And then another one of the things is just the mobile and home-based devices and how that can affect our work environment. We've developed some new partnerships to help us be able to take care of some of those things. We've joined some associations like ASCII and MSP Alliance so that we're getting more training for us so we can do a better job, but it's also helped open some doors to some some companies that we've been able to partner with that previously we wouldn't have been able to. And some of these are like ID Agent, which has to do with the identity management and the dark web scanning, those type things. Siren and SentinelOne and Carver Security, those are all security things that previously, all of those I just mentioned, ID Agent, Siren, SentinelOne, Carver, you couldn't get to, or you can't get to as a regular consumer. They only work with like big companies, like Fortune 100 type companies. They don't even deal with necessarily with someone my size even that, you know, has several customers that I work with. Well, through some of these partnerships, I've been able to get access to those products, this is the stuff that Microsoft uses to keep their network secure, or Google uses to keep their network secure. These are the biggest of the big companies use this stuff. And now we've got availability to have these products available for you guys. And then some of these others, the Passportal, the Dashlane, Jump Cloud, these have to do with some of that password and identity management stuff that we're going to be getting into. And then the Fortinet, we've been a partner with them for a long time, but I wanted to throw them in here as well, just from a security standpoint. So our thing we want to talk about now is this everywhere protection. That's kind of what we're calling this new thing we're rolling out. And it's kind of the ability to keep you protected no matter where you're at. Whether you're at the office, whether you're on your phone or tablet, you're at home, you're out running around, keeping you secure wherever you're at. Because when we're on the go, you know, when we're at work, we've got pretty good security. It's when we're at home or we're on the go and I need to check my email on my phone or my home computer. That's the way most of us work anymore. Or maybe I need to work on a file at home, but if I have something bad on my home computer, I don't want to transfer that bad stuff to my work computer and cause problems at work. So we've got things to help take care of that now. And part of this goes back to that Siren thing that I just mentioned a moment ago. Part of their protection, it's a very quick thing. There's a concept in security called a zero-day vulnerability. And what that means is it's a problem that we didn't know existed until right now. And when that happens, usually it takes a while for most of your security vendors to get out a patch. That could be 24, 36, 48 hours, maybe longer in some cases. The really top of the line security companies, which Bitdefender kind of falls into and the SentinelOne product falls into, they've got something out within about an hour, which is pretty quick. Siren is able to have something out within a couple of minutes. And part of this reason is because they're not pushing updates. It's all a totally web-based set of information. And it happens at a massive scale. Siren's one of the companies you've never heard of. You don't know what they do, but they are behind the scenes of so many of the top security products that are out there and behind many of the security appliances that are out there as well. A lot of them use some of Siren's technology. Well, now we've got the ability to directly plug into some of those things. And it can protect us no matter where we're at. We can use it to block threats, enforce web use policies, which we already had the ability to do the web use policies through Bitdefender, but it adds another layer. Also protects mobile employees. It can inspect encrypted traffic, the SSL traffic, and it can protect your guest networks. If you're allowing Wi-Fi access at your office, it can protect that as well. Some of the companies that use these technologies, it's Google, Microsoft, Dell, Checkpoint, which is one of the largest security providers of the transactions, e-commerce type transactions, Intel, T-Mobile, a lot of other large companies. This is what they use. So back to this everywhere protection. Basically, there's two different components of this that we can use. We can use a device-based component, which we're calling the everywhere protection, and you can put it on up to 5 devices per user. So now I can put this on, say, your computer at the office. Maybe you've got a laptop. We can put it on it. We can put it on your phone. We can put it on your home computer. Up to 5 devices per user, and it costs $10 a month. And it protects you no matter where you're at, and it provides that ability, like if you're using the public Wi-Fi and stuff, it encrypts that traffic and keeps it safe and secure so people can't see and steal your information while you're surfing the internet or getting to your email. So that is one piece of it. The other side of it is there's a piece we can add to your router on your network, and it protects everything on your network. From the DNS hijacking, it filters out bad websites and phishing websites, and just keeps your network more secure. And where this really comes into play, this is something we've had the ability to do already if you were buying one of our high-end security routers, like our Fortinet router. It has the ability to do this plus some other stuff. But for a smaller agency that only is a 1-person or a 2-person kind of place, that was pretty expensive to spend several $100s on a router. Now we can take a lower-end router, add this, basically plug in some stuff into that router, and it's able to filter out a lot of that stuff and keep your network more secure. It's really a big deal too if you're using the Wi-Fi on your local network, or if you've got some of those what they would call Internet of Things kind of devices on your network. And basically that's anything that's not a computer. So it would be like your copy machine, your printers, security cameras. Those are all pretty common things that we have on our networks, but we usually don't think about the security of those devices, and that's why they've started to be used by hackers to attack you and to spy on you through those devices, because they usually don't get updated and taken care of like the computers do. So it's very easy. They're less secure. Well, this helps filter out and stop some of that type of traffic from getting in and out of your network. And basically we can do that at a cost of about $25 a month to secure your network like that at the router level. So those are a couple of the new things we've got that I just wanted to kind of talk about today. Some of the things we're going to talk about in the coming months, we're going to talk about ransomware, we're going to talk about the dark web, and we're going to talk about identity management. Those are some of the things coming up in the coming months. Now I am ready for questions, and I will have Tricia's going to open up your mics so you can ask questions now. Okay. Anybody have any questions?
What is dark web?
Dark web? Well, like I said, that's going to be one of the things we're going to talk about on a future one. But basically, the dark web is a small subset, well, actually a large subset of the internet that you can't get to with like a regular search engine like Google or Bing. You usually have to have specialized software to get there. And part of that is there for people that are kind of wanting to be anonymous. So it could be somebody like a whistleblower. It could be people that are providing information to reporters. It could be someone that's in a country that is highly regulated, their activities and their opinions and stuff. So that's one thing. But on the other side, probably the thing that's the more widely known is the hacker community. There's tons of information for sale out there. Anything from identity theft type information, murder for hire, human trafficking, drugs. Can be a very bad place. But it's not something you stumble onto. You have to be going there and know what you're doing to even get there. But it's really someplace you don't necessarily need to go. But the main reason that I mention it for you guys is that if your data has been part of one of these data breaches, like I mentioned, the Equifax and Yahoo and so many of the others, River City Media, some of those. If you've been a part of one of those data breaches, your information is most likely for sale on the dark web. So hackers turn around and sell that information they've stolen to other people that use it to go make money or try to steal your identity or, various things like that. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any more questions?
Okay, Cletus?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just asking for a friend. Can you buy a senator on the dark web?
You probably could.
Oh, no.
You buy what?
Can you, when you're talking about the Spectre and the
Meltdown.
and you're talking, what sort of attacks will those lead to? I was thinking more software type attacks, but then you started talking and it sounded like changes in hardware.
The actual vulnerability is a hardware. It's down at the hardware level, and it has to do with the way the processors multitask. And when they do that, they share information. Okay? So let's say we have two guys and they're running the race, and one gets there before the other, and then when the other one kind of catches up, they share information. Well, that information could be like a calculation to a math problem, but it could also be your password. And that's where the vulnerability comes in, is that if they can access that very low-level information there, they could get things like passwords and user, privileged credentials. That's the scary part. But currently, there is not an active exploit for that. But it's just a matter of time before there will be.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Seems like they'd have gotten the fix first before they announced they had the vulnerability.
Well, sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. That's kind of the way the world happens. What happened was this one, it actually was discovered a little bit before that, but someone leaked the announcement of it. And that's started to become a more common thing, because what happens a lot of times is that companies will take no action until they have to. And this particular vulnerability goes all the way back to the 90s. And Intel and AMD both have known that it was a possibility. It was a theoretical thing that could happen, but they never, unless you were, one of the really serious, hardware engineer guys that, knows the inner workings of the processor, you would have never discovered this. There's only a handful of people on the planet that understand that level of detail. So the problem was they've known about it a long time, but they never did anything about it because they just considered it was theoretical and the chance of it happening was pretty low. Well, it came out more and more about it, and finally someone just said, hey, here it is. The race is on. And we've seen that with some other vulnerabilities over the last couple of years, that some companies will just settle on the information and the knowledge of it and just take a chance that nobody will figure it out.
Right.
Carol
okay.
had a question. She
Okay.
says, when you were talking about security cameras, do you mean the web-based? We have Tyco integrated security, but it is hooked to our network. We're
Yes.
getting ready to upgrade, so just...
Yes. Okay. The question, I'm sure y'all probably didn't hear that Patricia was just reading me from Carol, had to do about security cameras. And yes, that's what we're talking about is, sometimes the cameras aren't connected directly to the network, but usually you have some type of like DVR or NVR that the cameras connect to, and that device is what's connected to your network. And that's what allows you to like pull it up on another computer or on your cell phone or something to see your cameras. And those are the kinds of things I'm talking about that are kind of in that Internet of Things that are susceptible. And when I say susceptible, we forget about them. I don't know how many times I've gone in to do a network assessment someplace, and I'll ask people about, okay, tell me about all the stuff on your network. They tell me, then we run our assessment and we find like 5 more things that they didn't tell us about because either they had forgotten they knew about them and they forgot, or in some cases they didn't even know they were on their network. Somebody had just plugged it in somewhere and they didn't even realize it was there. But those things can potentially be used by bad guys to do bad stuff. And the problem, especially with some of the security camera products, is that a lot of times they don't necessarily get updates, or the manufacturer may not ever make an update. Or if they do, it's very few and far between. That's one of the scary things about some of these devices. Okay.
We are looking to do.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone else have a question? Okay. Well, we're about out of time anyway. So.
Hello. I have a quick question.
Okay. Okay, Tawanda?
Yeah, so I work for Tawanda. I'm Teresa. I copy and scan a lot of personal information, social security numbers, birth certificates on my level, and occasionally I email the information to other housing authorities. And I worry about how I transport the information or how I, copy the information. I just didn't know if there's something I could do to make it safer. Or...
Yes, and I'm sorry. This is Teresa. Which Teresa is this?
FBHA.
Okay. Yeah. What I would suggest, let's sit down, maybe me, you, and Tawanda, and just look at your process for that. And because it's kind of a case-by-case basis. It's hard to say if it's good or bad without kind of seeing the process. I'll be glad to sit down and review that with you.
Sounds great.
We can maybe offer some suggestions to make it a little better, or say, oh my gosh, don't ever do that again, or whatever, based on what you're actually doing.
Okay.
Glad to do that, Trey.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, if no one else has anything, then I will let you guys go, and you can get a couple of minutes back in your day here. And I will talk to you later. Thank you.